to SHOT Show TV. I am Bob Fryer. We are here with Hlebinsky. Good to see you.
Good to
How are
see
you?
ya.
I hesitate to even say what it is that you do.
I
You do
hesitate
so
too.
many things. We start with arms historian, museum curator, expert witness. What would you say that you do?
That's about it. Like, I just had someone earlier today that asked me what I do, and then I was like just rambling a bunch of things that I do.
Yeah.
But arms historian, I create research centers that are on the study of guns, and then if it's history related and guns, I tend to have my hand in it. And so that goes from anything from museums to guns that have their own, gun companies that have their own history, working with them, and all kinds of stuff.
We were talking just a bit ago, and I find this fascinating that you can sort of trace the history of our culture through the history of how guns are produced, how they've changed throughout the years. And guns have had a hand in so many of our different industries. It's amazing how intertwined everything is.
I always say, I study firearms. I ran a huge firearms museum in Wyoming for a really long time. But then I ended up at all of these different types of museums afterwards as a consultant. Mm-hmm. And you might be like, well, why are you at this museum? And it's like, because firearms are so connected to so many things that I learned about, law enforcement, the military, organized crime. A client of mine's the Mob Museum here in Vegas.
In Vegas, yeah.
And so you end up learning a lot about different fields, the automobile industry, alcohol industry, guns and alcohol don't always go together, but sometimes if you're David Marshall Williams and you're selling moonshine and building an M1 carbine, there it is. It is so connected. So I have kind of this very broad knowledge, and I'm able to kind of pinpoint different parts of history and draw it back to how firearms have had some connection. It's really, it's a pretty great way to communicate with people that don't know anything about guns, which is one of my specialties, is kind of bringing those people in and having a balanced, more kind of respectful conversation.
You did a sort of a survey of people that were coming into one of the museums that you were curating, and it was like 200,000 people you surveyed, and like 50% of them knew nothing about guns going in.
So that was, when I was at the Cody Firearms Museum, we actually gutted the museum, completely rebuilt it.
Multi-million-dollar renovation.
$12 million renovation. Yeah. We reopened it in 2019, and we did some studies right before to kind of figure out who we were targeting, which is a great pun, who we were targeting when it came to the museum. You're in Wyoming, but you're at the east gate of Yellowstone. That's where that is. The east gate of Yellowstone. So your tourism population is huge. Your international tourism population is huge. And so we're like, who's coming to the museum, and why would they or would they not choose to go into the Firearms Museum? Because it's 5 museums under one roof. So it's a 7-acre roof. There's a Western Art Museum, a Plains Indian Museum, a Buffalo Bill Museum, and Natural History Museum. And so we looked at people like in the cafeteria, are you planning to go to the Firearms Museum? Would you prioritize the Firearms Museum? And we learned only 3% of that 200,000 people would outright refuse. There was nothing you could do to get them to go in the museum. And I thought that was surprisingly low. And then we learned that half of the people that come through don't necessarily consider themselves knowledgeable or have any experience with firearms. So when we rebuilt the museum, we were really trying to go through 2 tracks. It was quite difficult. Your enthusiast, your aficionado who is going to travel across the world to come to this museum, and your person that got dragged there, right? The person that got dragged there that is standing in a museum going, okay, cool, there's a bunch of guns, but how does that affect me? How is that important? And so we built kind of we layered the information. So if you loved guns, you could go in and there's like, thousands of guns, but then down on reader rails, there's information about with the Civil War, how the military, had formations, but then also the idea of profiteering during war times, and that enslaved peoples were, manning a lot of the factories in the South. So we were trying to kind of pull in those social stories to bring people who otherwise wouldn't care at all into the museum. And we did a pretty good job. We did shift our demographic when we did surveys afterwards, slightly younger, more diverse, more women. And my assistant, who's now the curator, he said he heard the ultimate compliment, which was he heard there was a couple, a man and a woman, and they were leaving, and for the first time ever, and us hearing this, it was the woman that was getting dragged out of the museum because she wanted to stay and
There
he
you
was
go.
bored. So I
Nice.
feel like that's a pretty good, we did something right.
So, in what capacity are you here at SHOT Show?
It's complicated. It's about
Okay.
as complicated as what I do for a living. So I'm here on behalf of the University of Wyoming Firearms Research Center,
Okay.
and one of the things we do is we're creating a pipeline to have students that want to become firearms lawyers. So that's not Second Amendment litigators. That's just I want to be the general counsel of Ruger. I'm interested in working in product liability litigation, and they don't have anywhere to go. So we're working with a lot of the different companies who are willing to place an intern for the summer. So that's one of the things that we've partnered up with. Smith & Wesson is doing an essay contest that we're helping them out with on the Second Amendment. And then we're basically stopping by, talking to our donors, doing interviews to raise awareness.
Yeah.
And then outside of that, I also have clients like the Los Angeles Police Museum, and they're here trying to kind of build their relationship with different companies that are connected to the LAPD to either get product for the museum, a longer relationship, maybe a donor relationship, or just getting the officers who, love the product that they buy and get them a more personal relationship with the industry. So a lot of different reasons why I'm here, but usually it's history focused and making connections for people. I think this is my 12th SHOT Show, which I know is not a lot compared to a lot of people. But when I was rebuilding Cody, I got to know a lot of these companies, a lot of these executives, a lot of these salespeople. And so I want to be able to kind of pay it forward.
Okay.
So I introduce a lot of my clients around so that they have the ability to kind of grow those relationships moving forward. Because it can't just be all about me. Because what if something happens to me or I'm not working with them, then they have nothing. And so I'm there trying to build them up so they can build their own, repertoire of contacts.
Is there, before I let you go, is there some place that you'd like people to go who might be seeing this and want to get in touch with you or with the Firearm Research Center?
For sure. So the Firearms Research Center's web address is very complicated. It's firearmsresearchcenter.org.
I have to write that down.
I know, it's really hard. And then we're at Firearms Research on social media. And then for me, I do have a website, theguncode.com, but I'm going to be honest, I don't really look at it. But you can contact me on there, and that will come directly to my email.
Ashley Hlebinsky, good to see you, my
Good to
friend.
see you.
Thank you so much. Enjoy your week here at SHOT Show.
Thank you.
And for SHOT Show TV, again, I'm Bob Fryer.